We've all been watching this situation in Venezuela for years, right?
Yeah.
The sanctions, the economic collapse, the whole political standoff with Nicolas Maduro.
Mm,
But what if the way it all allegedly shifted wasn't a sudden collapse? What
right.
if it was something much quieter?
Something planned.
Exactly. We're looking at claims today that this wasn't a crisis, but a coordinated, deep-rooted conspiracy. A 3-year secret agreement with some players you would absolutely never expect.
And that's really what this deep dive is all about. We're
Yeah.
trying to unpack the alleged mechanics here. You have to forget the headlines for a minute.
Right.
We're going into claims of, internal betrayal, very complex financial warfare, and some really sophisticated tactics to neutralize the military.
So our mission today is to unpack the claims around this alleged 3-year plan.
Mhm.
We're focusing on who the internal betrayer was, how the military was kept quiet, and the very controversial role played by a major Gulf state, Qatar. And just so you know what we're getting into, the two most shocking claims, right up front, are these. First, the internal double-cross allegedly involves Maduro's most trusted vice president,
Delcy Rodriguez.
Delcy Rodriguez. And second, that the entire thing only worked because Qatar apparently acted as the financial go-between for the CIA.
It really paints a picture of a silent, highly coordinated operation.
Yeah.
We're not talking about brute force here. The claim suggests this was a 3-year strategy built on leveraging corruption and, trust.
Okay, let's start there with that internal fracture. Because according to these sources, without it, none of the external stuff would have mattered.
No, it's the linchpin.
So Delcy Rodriguez, she wasn't just some cabinet member. The sources are really clear on this. Maduro placed immense trust in her. Can you describe the kind of power she actually had?
Well, she was basically the economic and institutional czar. I mean, Maduro didn't just trust her. He handed her the keys. Critical ministerial roles, financial control.
So she had insight into everything.
Everything. The nation's security architecture, and this is the crucial part, control over state finances and legislative actions. If you want to take down a regime from the inside, you need someone who controls the money.
So the allegation isn't just that she was unhappy. It's that she actively cut a deal for her own future.
A very specific deal. The sources allege she made a secret deal with the U.S., one that was put into motion over that 3-year period.
And what was the end game for her?
To take over the presidency herself. That's the core claim. This wasn't about her joining the opposition. It was framed as a kind of succession plan, just one orchestrated from the outside.
That makes it feel less like a coup and more like a planned transition.
An illicit change of command, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
According to the source material, that's the necessary first step. It creates this huge security blind spot.
Which opens the door for the next big challenge, neutralizing the military.
Exactly. Without that internal catalyst, any external move would have been met with, immediate organized resistance. But once your highest-ranking insider is allegedly on board,
The path starts to clear.
and you can start to address the giant in the room, the Venezuelan armed forces.
And it is a giant hurdle. The sources really emphasize this point. We're not talking about some poorly equipped militia.
No, not at all.
Venezuela has advanced Russian systems. They specifically mention the S-300 surface-to-air missiles and Igla man-pads.
Which are man-portable air defense systems, highly effective.
So why didn't they resist? Given these high-tier defenses, how could any U.S. operation, alleged or not, go unopposed? That's the paradox here.
It's a massive paradox. An S-300 system can see and engage targets from a very long way away. The fact that the sources claim there was zero defense, that points to something way beyond incompetence.
It points to compliance.
To alleged internal compliance and deliberate deactivation. And this is where the story shifts from political betrayal to highly sophisticated financial neutralization.
So how do you do it? How do you silence a well-armed, loyal military without a single public shot being fired? What was the mechanism?
The sources detail this multi-year process. It was about financial and psychological leverage. And the timeline they give is specific.
Which is?
The CIA allegedly began the process of identifying and buying off key Venezuelan military officials as early as 2023.
Buying them off sounds simple, but an international bribery operation of that scale. Moving money, guaranteeing safety, that's a huge operational risk. You need a bridge, a discreet one.
And that intermediary, according to the sources, was Qatar.
Ah.
Qatar allegedly acted as the mediator for these deals. The strategic bribery. It gives the U.S. layers of plausible deniability, and it lets you move huge amounts of money outside of normal banking channels that would, immediately flag sanctions violations.
So Sakar was the quiet, liquid facilitator.
That's the claim. And the strategy wasn't just dangling a carrot. The sources highlight a really effective dual approach.
Reward and ruin.
Exactly. A carrot and a very big stick. On one side, military officials were reportedly threatened with being immediately designated as war criminals if they fought back.
Wow. That's a threat to their families, their future, everything.
Any chance of a life outside Venezuela. But on the other hand,
The incentive? What was the guarantee for cooperation?
it was powerful.
Yeah.
Wealth and the retention of power. This is so key. They weren't being asked to surrender or defect.
They were being told they could keep their jobs and get rich.
Keep their rank, their fortunes. It turns the entire chain of command on its head by appealing directly to the self-preservation of the senior officers. Greed and fear.
So if it worked, what did that compliance actually look like on the day when this purported U.S. strike happened? We're talking about those S-300s, the Iglos.
The claim is one of active facilitation by the commanders who were allegedly on the payroll. During the supposed strike, the military allegedly just shut down radar systems,
Just turn them off.
turned them off, and kept the fighter jets on the ground. This isn't just staying neutral. This is deliberately deactivating the very systems meant to protect your country's airspace.
Enabling the operation to proceed completely unopposed.
It's the ultimate payoff of that financial neutralization strategy.
The synchronization here. Rodriguez on the inside, the Qatari financial pipeline, the specific military stand-down. The planning that must have taken over 3 years is just staggering. Which brings us back to that external channel, Qatar. They were indispensable.
Absolutely. That's the critical pivot point in this whole story. Qatar's alleged willingness to play this role to bridge the CIA's goals with the Venezuelan military's greed. That's what made the whole thing work. And that brings us to the much messier regional politics of it all.
Let's shift there then to Qatar's controversial role, because it goes way beyond Venezuela. The sources suggest they've become something of a U.S. secret weapon across multiple regions.
And this geopolitical shift, if true, carries immense risk for them, especially when you remember their recent history with Iran and Turkey.
Right. You have to remember, Qatar owes a huge debt of gratitude to them. The source material reminds us that Iran and Turkey basically saved Qatar during the Saudi-led blockade a few years back.
They kept the supply lines open, provided military support. They were instrumental in making sure Qatar wasn't crushed.
A huge act of solidarity. So the sources claim Qatar has just forgotten that debt. Why would they take this risk? Why allegedly work against the very nations that ensured their survival?
Well, the critics cited in the sources offer a couple of possibilities. One is that the long-term relationship with the U.S., especially with that massive Al Udeid air base, simply trumps everything else.
The strategic partnership is just too important.
That's one theory. The other is that this shift is now profound. It's not just about Venezuela. The allegation is that Qatar is now actively helping U.S. operations that reach directly into the Middle East.
And are there specific allegations about that from, say, Iranian intelligence or other sources?
Yes, there are some very serious claims of direct interference. First, Iranian intelligence sources allege that Qatar is now being used as a financial channel
For what?
to fund current anti-government protests inside Iran. If that's true, it is a direct act of hostile interference against a nation that was their lifeline during the blockade.
And there's a second example, one that's even more direct, tying Qatar to military conflicts.
Correct. The sources claim that during specific Israeli strikes on Iran, U.S. tankers used air bases in Qatar, presumably Al Udeid, for refueling.
For refueling?
Yes, for crucial refueling operations. This isn't just, a diplomatic alliance. This is an allegation of facilitating military logistics during hostile action against Iran.
So when you put it all together, it's stunning. If these claims hold up, Qatar isn't just a discreet banker for a deal in Venezuela.
No, it's acting as a strategic pipeline across multiple theaters, coordinating the financial, the diplomatic, and the logistical needs for U.S. objectives, pretty much globally.
That's a remarkable journey from a nation that was besieged by its neighbors to an alleged operative working against its former protectors.
It perfectly illustrates how complex these modern regime change operations have become. It's less about invasion and more about long-term financialized engineering. Qatar allegedly served as that crucial external channel, coordinating the whole 3-year agreement that led to the shift in Venezuela.
So after this deep dive, the main takeaway seems pretty clear. The ousting of Maduro wasn't some organic crisis. It wasn't a sudden popular uprising. It was the alleged result of a well-planned 3-year secret agreement, one built on high-level internal betrayal, the neutralization of the military through sophisticated financial coercion,
Yeah.
and the use of Qatar as the essential discrete geopolitical mediator. And that's really the crucial thing for you listening to this, to grasp about modern power. This kind of long-term mediated strategy shows you how important financial incentives really are.
Right.
When you're facing a powerful military with advanced systems like the S-300s, you don't actually need a massive invasion force. Not if you can successfully guarantee the commanders of that army future wealth and power just for standing down. You make standing down the only rational choice for them.
The only rational, self-serving choice. It's a chillingly effective portrait of how power can shift behind closed doors.
Which leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought to mull over. If a nation like Qatar, which owes this massive recent debt to powers like Iran and Turkey for its own survival, if it can allegedly be leveraged to facilitate U.S. interests against those very same protectors.
While at the same time orchestrating regime change thousands of miles away, what does that pattern really suggest about the state of our world? It raises some serious questions about the stability and reliability of all current international alliances. How much trust can any nation really place in a partner when money and geopolitics can cause such dramatic, calculated pivots against former friends?